There's no Leonard Fournette, no Ezekiel Elliott, no Saquon Barkley in this class. There's nobody that's miles ahead the rest of the competition. Little hint there, a little teaser from Miles Sanders. Brendan Albert is here. I am Adrian Fedke. Running backs. Let's talk about it.
The running backs, y'all. So, I mean, look, we have seen this resurgence of first-round running backs all of a sudden starting to come a little more frequently than we saw in the early 2000s, Adrian. And I actually do have my number one running back being selected in the first round this year as well.
There you go. And, you know, that's a conversation that we can have right now because it seems like there are still some people that are stuck in the past. Running back isn't important. I think now running back is very important because of the ability to catch passes out of the backfield. And a 3rd and 8, a simple 3rd and 8, you take, for example, an Alvin Kamara who can take a simple check down pass and pick up a first down just based on his ability to make somebody miss in the open field. So you're seeing that dynamic now. Reggie Bush in today's NFL would fare so much better than he would have 15 years ago.
No doubt about it, Adrian. You're 100% right. And I think the other thing that we're slowly starting to see is I think we're going to start seeing in the next 5 years, we're going to start seeing teams go more old school pro style, more heavy, more run. Look at the New England Patriots. They absolutely smashed the Los Angeles Chargers. They went old school, and as we saw, the Chargers, they went all the way defense, all the way prepared for the spread, and then all of a sudden what happened? They weren't prepared to actually stop the run. I could foresee this, Adrian, in the next couple of years, this pass-heavy league, maybe like 5, 6, 7 years, starting to become a little more running back-centric. But I do believe, Adrian, that the value of the running back is certainly there for a first-round player.
Yeah, you make a great point about the Patriots. They're playing old school, baby. Power formations, I formations. Oh, I was loving it, man. It felt like I was watching the 80s. By the way, I told you, Brendan, that I would plug you early in the show. So make sure you follow Brendan's podcast at BurtonTD on Twitter. So I got it in earlier this time.
Appreciate it. And of course, guys, you can find us on Apple and you can find us on Spotify as well. But thanks, Adrian, for the plug there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so a quick little Eagles conversation before we get in. Now, we kind of had a show on this already, but we'll get into it. So the question here is, what should the Eagles do? Should they draft a running back, or do you trade for Duke Johnson and get your running back next year where the class is going to be a whole lot better?
So I'm always a fan of, if I can trade a day 3 pick for a rotation player or a starter, I'm doing it. So if that means the value for Duke Johnson's a 5th and maybe even a later pick, it's fine. I'll pull the trigger and have my Thunder and Lightning with Duke Johnson, Jordan Howard, and good to go. Because in that 5th round pick, you're probably going to get a guy who's maybe lucky to make the practice squad. Truthfully, that's usually what goes there. Yeah. So to me, if I can get a guy who can be, the best receiver out of the backfield, and by the way, he has actually led the NFL in receiving yards out of the backfield since Duke Johnson came into the league. There's no question for me, Adrian. I'd rather take Duke Johnson than draft a guy.
There it is, baby. So Team Duke right there. Yeah. All right, so I would do the same thing. After really looking at next year's class, man, I mean, it'd be pretty smart to just trade for Duke. You got Jordan Howard for a year. Let him walk. And you go get your running back next year, and you still got your pass-catching back and Duke Johnson. That makes the most sense to me.
I'm with you, man, because – and everyone talks about like, oh, well, you can find backs late. Yeah, you can. But I'd be willing to bet if you looked at the last 10 fifth-round draft picks from the Philadelphia Eagles, I would be shocked if more than 3 of them were on the active roster today.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into our lists. There's one guy who probably might go in the first round, probably is going to go in the first round. I'm not sure if there's any other running back that's going in the first round. That's Josh Jacobs. The question is he your number one guy?
He is my number one guy here, Adrian. Vision is his ability, his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. Both are two things that really gets me excited. The other thing that I know some people will kind of throw as a knock, I'm actually going to say as a pro, he doesn't have a lot of usage on him. Like I look at it like if I'm buying a car, I'd rather buy the car with less usage. Now,
it's funny that you make that point because that's going to be my point for somebody in a bit. So go ahead.
And I know where you're going, and I understand all that. Now, if I'm going to be critical of Josh Jacobs, speed is a concern. Speed is certainly a concern. Did not run super well at his pro day. And the one thing I always say about pro days, no one knows who's actually timing them. Okay. And you also aren't 100% sure, are we getting an official start or stop time? Because the pro days aren't always on lasers. The combine's on a laser. A lot of schools will run pro days on a hand timer. So that's going to be a friendly, oh, I forgot to start the clock maybe 2 yards into his run. And all of a sudden he's running significantly faster.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big believer in what pro day times are. Pro day times, I kind of like smile and nod my head. The combine times are the one I really care about. But I still think Josh Jacobs, Adrian, is a first-round worthy pick. And I don't see him falling out of the first round, especially because the Raiders have 3 draft picks. At the very, very worst case, Adrian, I think the Raiders will take him in the first round.
Okay. My number 1 guy is Miles Sanders. Now, I am not a Penn State guy. In fact, I hate Penn State. I'm a Temple guy. So this isn't a whole Penn State bias. I just truly believe that he's the number 1 guy in this class right now. If he had more than 1 year at Penn State, I think he'd be talked about a lot more. Very thick and strong in the lower body, kind of like somebody else who he was behind, now playing in New York. That's Saquon Barkley. Good hands was a really important part of the Penn State passing game. So you've got the ability to run and catch passes. I think he's equally adept at running inside or outside. So I think there's a lot to like about Miles Sanders. Now, I don't think he'd be the number 1 back in another class, like, the Ezekiel Elliott class or the Todd Gurley class or any of those. But in this class, I think he's the number 1 guy. I view Josh Jacobs more as a rotational guy. I view him more as like a Sony Michel type. But with Miles Sanders, I think he can be a 3-down guy, and that's why he's the number 1 guy in my mind of this running back class.
He's my number 2 guy, Adrian. I'm a big Miles Sanders fan as well. And like you, I also have my degree from Temple University. So it's like really pulling at me to say nice things about him. But dude's really good. I agree with you, Adrian. Really good pass catcher out of the backfield. Very, very elusive in space here.
Yes.
The flip I would say about him is not elite vision, which is typically something you want from one of these guys here. I am a big fan of him. I think Miles Sanders will go in the top 45 picks of the draft, but I don't think he's a first-round guy because I think he lacks in vision. While I look at Josh Jacobs, and vision is his biggest asset. It's all well and good to be really fast and be the faster player of the two. Like, I think Miles Sanders is faster. But if you can't see the open field, it doesn't matter to me. So that's why I have Josh Jacobs ahead of Miles Sanders.
Yeah, and the other point I was going to make, which I forgot to make, was the fact that he only had 1 year as a starter, not a lot of wear and tear on that body of his. So there's that point. And then the thickness and the strength in his lower body, he's got that natural forward lean where he can kind of drag defenders. So the question I have for you is, like, there's the vision and then there's that, but then there's also, the physicality you can have as a runner. So what do you kind of like differentiate between the two? What's kind of more important? Is it the vision? Is it the strength? What do you kind of look for in a back?
Vision's my number 1 because vision's the hardest thing to teach, right? Yeah. I mean, vision is my number 1 thing from there. After that, I probably would say speed is the second most important thing, Adrian, because that's, again, really hard to teach. From there, ability to catch balls out of the backfield, pass protection. Those are things that's more of an acquired trait that I think you can get for a really good running back coach in the NFL, and he can develop those things.
Yeah. All right, my number 2 is Josh Jacobs. So it's not like I had Josh Jacobs falling too far. Just some things to add that I don't think you add. I think he's pretty strong and physical after contact. Not like Miles Sanders in that sense, but I think he's got some there. And quick to the hole, he's got the vision. The vision is what it is for me too. So Josh Jacobs, my number 2. Now we get to number 3, and I guess I'll go first here. So kid from Iowa State, David Montgomery. Dude's a tank. And, we talk about 80s football and physical football. If you drafted this guy in the 80s, he'd probably go a lot higher than he's going to go in this draft. Very low center of gravity, natural low pad level balance when he runs, works between the tackles, runs with a lot of violence, pushes the pile, and that's what he's about. He's about physicality as a runner. And I love his stiff arm. He's got a nasty stiff arm. So David Montgomery is my number 3.
David Montgomery all day is Kareem Hunt. I mean, I don't think there's a single player in the draft, Adrian, that I am more confident at making a player comparison than David Montgomery to Kareem Hunt as far as an athlete goes, right? You talked about, Adrian, his physicality. I'm going to use it in a different way. his balance. His balance is outstanding. So
Yes.
often am I watching him take a hit, still fall forward, not necessarily seeing his body and his body being thrown off of his track. And obviously, Adrian, his pass catching ability is very notable. You could probably say he's the best pass catcher out of this year's class. I think he is a fair comparison for all three of these guys to be the number one running back this year. The flip side I would say about him, his second-level speed is very much lacking. Now, that said, so was Kareem Hunt's second-level speed. And if you go watch the first time he played the New England Patriots, he's running away from those guys. So I would say it is a concern for me, Adrian, but I also know that sometimes second-level speed doesn't matter if you get enough of a running head start over everyone because of your vision and because of your balance.
Yeah. The balance is a great point. And what I mean by like the natural forward lean is to be able to pick up that 2 to 3 extra yards after contact, not just like go backwards, because you're not balanced enough. So there it is. All right. So your number 3 is David Montgomery. My number 3 is David Montgomery. My number 4 is Darrell Henderson. I don't know if he's going to be your number 4. I know he's a lot of people's darlings. That's like everybody's sleeper heading into the draft. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are going to be on him temporarily. Quick, fast, and explosive, makes people miss in the open field. Makes people miss regularly in the open field. Darrell Henderson, pass-catching threat as well. So a lot of people want the Eagles to draft him. He's my number 4.
And I'm going to table my comments on him until after this because I understand everything you said there, Adrian. I don't think there's any lies there about him. My number 4 guy is Damian Harris, and he is 1,000% not the Eagles pick. I would be 1,000% shocked. And the reason I say that is because Damian Harris reminds me of Jordan Howard. He's more of that more physical power guy who's going to really excel more in the traditional power style offense. I think what Seattle has typically done. He's a guy who is very, very consistent. He's going to fall forward. I also would tell you, Adrian, Damian Harris also is a little bit low thrills to me. While Josh Jacobs has the ability to kind of really run away from guys and make explosive plays happen, Damian Harris is that boxer who's continuing to throw the jab. Very low thrills, but very consistent too. I think Damian Harris, for that reason, is probably a guy who goes late second, third round, maybe like a Nick Chubb situation as well.
Okay. My number 5. I had trouble coming up with a 5th, to be honest. I think there's like a top 4, and then the rest of them I'm not really sure about. So I'm going to just throw out a name just because I want to sound smart. So Devin Singletary out of Florida Atlantic, a very slippery back, very exciting with the ball in his hands. So because I want to sound smart, I'm going to go with Devin Singletary as my number 5.
Loose hips for him. I mean, you watch his film, and I mean, it looks like half of his body is different from the top half than his lower half because he's got really, really slippery hips. In space, he is dangerous. I think that's a good one, Adrian. I think a lot of people could, say that he could be a guy who maybe is the 4 pick or he could be the 7 pick. I think that's a fair one. I'm going to go with a little more explosion with my 5 guy. I'm going Justice Hill out of Oklahoma State. Tore up the combine. 4.4 in the 40, 40-inch vert, 130 on the broad. And you know what, for Justice Hill, like they do in Oklahoma State, throw the ball around a lot. So he's got a lot of ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Great elusiveness in space. If you want to talk about a guy in space, Marlon Mack, Duke Johnson, these are all guys that I think are very fair comparisons here for Justice Hill. The flip side, if you want him to run between the tackles, you're really wasting him because that's
what I was going to ask you because he goes down so easily.
Exactly. And you know what? He also does have a guy who in 2018 missed a bunch of games because of a rib injury. I think I was expecting him to be closer to like 190, Adrian. Ends up weighing in at just under 200 pounds, which was great for him. So I like Justice Hill a lot. I have him as my 5 guy, Adrian. I think he'll be a guy probably going in round 3, where unfortunately the Philadelphia Eagles currently don't have a draft pick.
So you don't think he could fall to the 4th?
I don't think so. Because I think what he excels at is what most teams really get excited about, that opportunity to be a mismatch out of the backfield.
Because I think he'd be a very realistic pick if he falls to the 4th round for the Eagles.
I think if
pass catching.
Adrian, in my opinion, Adrian, if he falls to the 4th round, he's going to be a guy some teams will probably trade up to try to get.
Yeah. All right. So we're done our top 5. I am curious though. No Darrell Henderson. Why?
So he was a guy, honestly, Adrian, I came in really, really excited about with the combine. and kind of let me down. So as I talked about Justice Hill came in 4.4 flat in the 40,
Yep.
40-inch on the vertical, 130 on the broad. Henderson, 4.49 on the 40, 33.5 on the vertical, 121 on the broad. Not massive difference, but Adrian, to me, like if I am split between these guys, like I'm split between Henderson, Hill, and Singletary. It's a coin flip for all three of them. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well then who had the best combine performance? That's the guy I'm going to slide. So that's why, Adrian, I would slide Justice Hill up ahead of Henderson and of Singletary. But if you were in the draft room and really arguing with me, I would say, okay, hey, I'm okay with either of those guys there at the 5 pick. I just think Justice Hill is the most explosive. That's why he's my 5th running back this year.
Henderson is an interesting name because it feels like the fans love him, but the scouts don't feel as high on him. And this goes back to the whole box score scouting thing, because I remember last year, Anthony Miller was everybody's darling as a wide receiver, puts up all these numbers in that explosive Memphis offense. So I think people are looking at the box score scouting sometimes with Henderson because everybody loves him. I mean, I got him as my number 4. I don't have him at number 3. I mean, I think he's okay. I'm not like crazy enamored with him, but it seems like everybody loves the guy.
He does have if I'm going to be pro, right? Let me fill the glass halfway up here if we're talking about Henderson. The pro I would say about him is he is explosive in space. He does have the ability to take the ball the distance here.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be a con about him, because I do think Singletary, and Hill, all three are going to be third down type of guys. If I'm going to be con about him, Adrian, majority of his stuff at Memphis is on swing passes and is on quick out wing end type of screenplays.
Yeah.
He's not a guy who's running a very large route tree. So versus Justice Hill, who does have a little more experience in it. That doesn't mean that Henderson can't do it. Let's not get it twisted. It just means that he wasn't asked to do it. So I can't say it with confidence that he can do it. While with Justice Hill, I can say I know he can do it because I saw him do it at, frankly, a higher level conference in the Big 12 than the American.
Did Benny Snell's 4.66 really kill him?
What I think killed him is when you see guys like Raquel Armstead run so darn well.
Yeah.
Because the conversation was, well, Benny Snell's a heavy guy, right? So we're okay with him running a little bit slower because he's heavy. Well, Raquel Armstead weighed in pretty darn close to him, Adrian, and ran faster than him. So if I'm worried about speed, then I'm going to slide Benny Snell even further down.
Yeah. All right, so just touching on some other guys. Bryce Love was the runner-up to the Heisman last year. Now, all of a sudden, is he even a top 10 running back?
Man, this is a tough one, Adrian. I don't think so. I mean, it's weird to see a guy fall so much as he did. And I think the other thing we got to talk about, 5'9", 196 pounds, that's a little fella. And usually when you see guys like that, you say, oh, well, he can catch passes out of the backfield. He wasn't asked to do it. Mm-hmm. And this is the same offense that had Christian McCaffrey. So it's not like this is, Navy's offense who never throws the ball. So I don't see him, Adrian, being a top 10, back this year.
Yeah. Also tore his ACL in his final collegiate game. So obviously that's not going to help him. And you make the point about him not really being a natural hands guy. My kind of deep sleeper, I'm not sure. I'm just curious if you like the guy or not. So I'll just throw his name at you. Travion Williams. Do you like him at all?
I do, from Texas A&M, Adrian. Yeah.
You like him. All right.
This is another
Maybe
guy.
I should have had him as my number 5.
I would have been okay with that too. I think he's
my running back sleeper. That's my guy.
He's probably in my top 10, to be truthful, Adrian. He's another guy similar to Damian Harris, and he's a throw the jab type of boxer, very consistent, and then eventually wears you out in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, he's running away from people. So I think that's a fair one, Adrian. I think he's a guy who's probably in that 3rd to 4th round pick range as well.
You got a sleeper in this draft?
I do, Adrian, and it's James Williams, and I've been banging the table for him.
I got him. I got him out of you.
Banging the table for him. He's my Washington State.
Bang the table.
He is my guy, and I say this, Adrian, because of what he does is elite. He is an elite pass catcher out of the backfield. The problem is he's not running the ball between the tackles at all. But again, you go put on the tape, Washington State, they're throwing the ball 70 times a game. So he's not getting the ball. But to be honest with you, Adrian, even if he was getting the ball, he wouldn't be doing it. He's definitely a guy who's got really good change of direction, long speed, absolutely solid here. Led the team in receiving yards and in receptions at Washington State, which is awesome. The trade-off, though, not great vision here, nowhere near as a guy who's going to move the pile. But if you're just looking for a guy on day 3 that's just going to catch the ball out of the backfield and that's all you ask him to do is maybe play, 12 to 15 reps a game, then James Williams is a guy who I think could be a good fit. If the Eagles want to take him in the 6th round, I'm not jumping for joy and excitement as the most fan would, but I'm saying I can pencil this guy in to fill that Darren Sproles role with far more confidence than I ever had. And what's his face that I don't want to say the name here, Adrian, and insult you, from San Diego State, which both you and me said was a horrible pick by the Eagles.
I will never, ever bang the table for Donnell Pumphrey. Ew. Ew. Oh, what a terrible pick.
And you know what? To give us both credit, Adrian, we both said that. We both said it from the jump. We didn't like him. The Eagles drafted him. We both said that's a bad pick. And then afterwards, yeah, we do have the ability to flex a little bit because we did call that. But you know what? We're human. We're human. I'm sure if we went back, Adrian, we got our fair share of misses too.
Oh, I meant to look – I forgot. Maybe we'll do that for a show. We'll look at – man, I meant to do that. I completely forgot to look at our picks from the last 2 years.
Well, I said mine on the quarterback. I would own that my miss is Deshaun Watson. And I say this because I still had Deshaun Watson as a top – I think I had top 12.
You still had him as your top, as your second guy, I think.
Yeah, I just had Mitch Trubisky over him, which looking back at it is a pretty big dumb move on my part. So I'll own that. But I did have him still high. I just thought, Mitch Trubisky was going to be more universal.
The question is where did we have Patrick Mahomes in that draft? Because we both did not like Patrick Mahomes.
But here's the thing, Adrian, okay? Like this is probably a good conversation we probably should have had on the quarterback.
Yeah.
But everyone wants to talk about how Cliff Kingsbury, Baker Mayfield. He had Patrick Mahomes. Well, guess what?
He went 500.
He went 500, and those guys got better when they left him. Yeah. Okay? Let's not make it seem like that Patrick Mahomes was a stud coming out of Texas Tech. He had almost a full red shirt in Kansas City under our boy Andy Reid, who obviously put him into the next level. So I'm not going to say, Adrian, that we were completely wrong on Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to say we were more so right in having blind faith in Andy Reid.
There you go. But that's a great point, though, you make, because it really does matter where you get drafted. Because Deshaun Watson, for example, being a one-read kind of guy heading out of Clemson, if he wasn't with Bill O'Brien, if he was with, say, I don't know, say he got drafted by the Cardinals instead, I don't see that working out as well.
That's 100% true, Adrian. Running back and quarterback, and I'm glad we did these both back-to-back, in my opinion, are the two positions that the rest of your team and really the rest of your organization has the most success to boast your success and calls you for failure. Kevin Cobb. That's a perfect example.
Cobb. Jesus.
There's so many guys like this that it's all about what is around you, what's in front of you, what's next to you, what's in the owner's box, what's in the GM position. There are so many variables here for these guys to be successful or be bust.
Yeah, we kind of forgot to talk about next year's quarterback class. I meant to in that last show. Anyway, this is a running back class show, so we're not going to get into that. I just wanted to say my Jake from State Farm joke. That's all.
I understand why you did that. I understand.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? Pretty good.
It stinks. It's fitting. Yeah. It's actually his Twitter handle too, which is really cool.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's his Twitter handle.
I didn't even know that. So It's not even that original.
No, he embraces it, which I respect.
Fuck. Damn it. Man. There goes that one. Not even original at all. Way to go, Adrian. Banging the table for that nickname. All right, that's enough. Any final thoughts?
Running back class this year, I'm not trading up for a back. I have never been a person in general who's been a fan of trading up for a running back. The other thing I will say about running backs, though, this is why I think that there is value for them in the first round. In my opinion, Adrian, it's the only position in the NFL that day one, they're already in their prime. Yeah. Running back is the only position in the NFL that by the time the second contract comes up, you could really argue that they were already on their decline of their career. So that's why, Adrian, I think there's value for taking one in the first round. That said, I'm not trading up for one because I also know there are so many other variables that go around to a running back being successful or not.
All right, there it is. Good final thought right there. I don't have anything. I'm good. And I don't have anything to plug because we plugged your stuff earlier. So we're good. That's Brennan Albert. I am Adrian Fedke. Peace out.
See you guys.